So, I'm in the park. Hopefully there's not too much background noise. And focusing on at least two things today. One is three things I'm grateful for. Two is recent lessons I've had. And three is exile from Me'am Loez, a Jewish sage. Okay. A Jewish commentator on the Torah. So first of all, three things I was grateful for. Now, I say was, not that I'm not now, but because I wrote this like a year ago or something like that. Agency, to not have to have something which is called locked-in syndrome, which is someone who just is paralyzed. Even some people might say it feels like sleep paralysis in some sense, maybe. Something related to that. Not in a prison, not captured or kidnapped in a location that I can't escape from. Not in an institution or a homeless shelter. Now, the thing about the location it can't escape from is actually the currently, I wrote this before. Before we had this recent war where the people were kidnapped, the hostages in Israel. Two, for my health, that I'm not blind, I have imagination and can walk and digest food and sleep and drink and relieve my bowels, both excrement and urine. I can talk, I can smell, I can hear. And my memory of the travels, people, experiences, games, skills, actions, muscle sequences and jobs and places, feelings, experiences, desires, successes and lessons and disappointments. Okay, recent lessons. This is just like things about a year ago that I was feeling like I was learning, and it was worth it to learn from and to write down. I mean, not to learn from, but to share. So the dance and the song energy of music brings one to feel at home in the body of flesh and energy. Transactions where someone's traits are revealed are more valuable than the sight. So the inside versus the outside. So the sight of the projectioned traits on them. So in other words, we project traits on them. This is what we see versus when their inner traits are revealed. That are desirable to be given credit for, but were not earned by them through observable interaction. It's possible to want someone to be a certain way so badly that we decide on their traits, only to then be disappointed when they don't show these aspects. It's more sustainable and efficient to recognize these traits that are actually displayed. Those traits, this is the basis, of the relationship, relate. So if we haven't actually seen them, if we want someone to be creative, but we haven't actually seen them be creative, in fact, they might be destructive, they have not earned the credit. It's a desirable thing. They want, who wouldn't want the credit to be considered a creative person? Rather, they haven't earned that through observable interaction. So it's important we have to accept the experience as it is and let them reveal who they are. Okay. Then it's possible to go deep down and uncover the true desires and feel uncovered without, even the subtle desires, in order to then build the desire from scratch. For example, for safety, for someone to hold on to, for approval, reassurance, for guidance. So we feel a desire, we go down into the roots of that desire. It's so subtle, it's not even a real desire yet. And then we could build a new desire from scratch out of that. We deconstruct it, and then we could it's like construction. We could reconstruct it. Okay, then we have, everyone has a right to be their own interpreter. And to the facts that are apparent. And occurrences happen. And each can choose meaning to these occurrences. Each one is allowed to. It's a right. Keeping boundaries for a healthy, productive, trustworthy foundation to establish the bond maintains respect and value. Sometimes people think, I want to be valued, I want to be respected. But in doing so, by not having boundaries, the inner boundaries, therefore, the relationship doesn't get to become established as a bond that's healthy, productive, and trustworthy in terms of the foundation. It's kind of counterproductive. So or not just counterproductive, obviously it's not productive, but it's counter to what we want. It's counterproductive in some way. or not trustworthy, it's not healthy. It takes away the maintenance of respect and value. The most precious thing in the world is direct contact with a loving connection, and that's always mutual. It has to be two people want it. Then it might seem like a man's world when my inner masculine as a woman needs are not getting met, and it may seem lonely when I forget the pressure and confusion and mixed feelings that men have to experience too. For example, today I messaged someone. I didn't message you the whole day because I wanted to see if you were going to reach out to me, because I feel like it's not good for me to want to connect and get to know someone who doesn't want to get to know and connect me. And I asked them Saturday night, like, why don't you ask me questions? So I'll check my message and see if they responded to me after this video. But that's an example. Like, maybe it's complicated for them. Maybe they don't know if they want to get to know someone. Maybe they're afraid of being rejected. Like I'm saying, my inner masculine wants to be stable. So maybe a man wants to be stable. Maybe he wants to have space, right? To grow, to learn. So he may not want to witness at that moment, or he doesn't know how to put into words yet. Keeping the eyes peeled literally means without a covering. Like, keep your eyes peeled, literally peeled, right? To pay attention actively. Sometimes it's about being able to keep on pivoting as I change, as others change. This word pivot I learned from someone, just to keep pivoting, like to pivot on your heel is like to readjust your direction without moving, from the same place. The place that hurts is often compensating for somewhere else. This is a big one. Now, we know this in the physics. It's called referred pain. When, let's say, your left shoulder is bothering you, but really your right shoulder is the one that has the issue. But there's another version where, let's say, because your right shoulder has the issue, your right elbow is bothering you. And so you think the right elbow is the one because it's hurting is the issue, but really it's because it's overworking, because your right shoulder is not doing what it's supposed to. So let's just say that there's another layer here, which is that your hip is being affected by your shoulder also. So now you have somewhere totally else, and then because your hip is being affected, it could affect your knee. So sometimes the compensations are so in a domino effect far away that it could be hard to trail it back. But you can always follow it back. It takes some time and deep breathing and focus, but we can each get there individually and for each issue. It could be possible for doubting to ultimately heal a wound, because underneath the heresy or insecurities is revealed an empty place where the light has not reached yet, that God is personal, caring, and good forever. So that's an example where, let's say, someone has doubts or is in fear mode. They're not feeling like God is good and caring, right? Or that God is like a personal God. So the light could get there because that person is in doubt. They could now, that place where the doubts could come from could now become filled with light. And then the third topic I want to share is from Me'am Loez. It's a book on Eicha, which is Lamentations. And so, as I said, he's a commentator. So Midrash 132 in Eicha, Lamentations. When the Sanhedrin, and this is where he's commenting from. Midrash Eicha is where the commentators talk about this part. And then he comments on a lot of these things. So I have it interspersed together from the book, both his comments and the comments he brings forth. So Midrash 132, Midrash Eicha 132. When the Sanhedrin was exiled, the Sanhedrin was the high court, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, didn't go into exile with them. When the priestly watches were exiled, the Shekhinah did not go into exile with them. But when the infants were exiled, the Shekhinah went into exile with them. And the commentaries on the Al-Shichs, there's another commentary, comment that the Hebrew word prosper, shalah, is related to shalom, peace, because the nations that for generations had been foes among themselves and each other could unite and stop feuding and in harmony be used to prosperously executing God's judgment to grieve Israel, which came through the Gentiles. In other words, they could gather together to hurt the Jews after they had been so unable to be on the same page with each other. So they say it's like a king is paying and training, and honoring a surgeon to remove his son's cancerous growths. Then when the son is better, he ignores, lets go of the surgeon after he pays him. It's not like, so they're saying like God hired the nations to do some work on us, on the Jewish people, the ones who are cruel or unfair. And afterward, it's like they get their dues for doing what God wanted, but it's not like God loves them or cares about them. They were just there to do the job. The sages say like how the mikvah, and also because the surgeon had to cause the son pain, the king, the father has some feelings about that too. It's like his son's pain is also going to affect him. The sages say like a mikvah, the ritual immersion bath, purifies a woman from the nida state after she has her period. So this is from the sages. It's not written outright in the Torah. There's an allusion to it relating to the red cow ritual, the paraduma with the hyssop and the bird and the ash. So basically, it's saying that her menstrual bleeding that separates her from her husband so it's called nida, and in the Torah it doesn't outright say that that's what purifies her, but the sages have made the connection from, like I mentioned, with the other area, and so because it says she's purified by her counting, but then she does the nida. So the sages say nida also means wanderer, and among the sins separating the Jews from the Shekhinah is bloodshed. So her blood that separates her from her husband, and the Shekhinah, the sin is bloodshed. So God needs to purify Israel from sins. And thinking of the woman, she counts for 7 clean days. The Jews had to wait 70 years before they could return to Jerusalem in between the two, in the exile. The Al-Shich, the commentator, says that the Jews try to hide the sins under the skirt, like trampled under the heel, seemingly insignificant, but repeatedly until severe repercussions, Jerusalem ended up falling. Where the hypocrisy became so ingrained that Israel didn't even recognize her own sins and was unprepared for the consequences of her actions and viewed her descent as astonishing. So I'm sure each of us could take note of that. I'm in my own way. I'll read it again. The Jews tried to hide their sins under the skirt, like trampled under the heel, seemingly insignificant, but repeatedly until severe repercussions. Jerusalem's fall was where the hypocrisy became so ingrained that Israel didn't even recognize her own sins and was unprepared for the consequences of her actions and viewed her descent as astonishing. Next, we have 2 more points here. Enemies chosen by God to punish Israel that acted in excess, inflicting blows extending beyond the limits of their mission. They magnified it. So, in other words, why does God punish people for being not kind to the Jews when it says, like we just said, they're considered like a surgeon, they're doing their job? It says here because they went too far. They caused too much pain, they were too harsh. And finally, the pleasures that Jerusalem recalled in her days of affliction and misery, this is from Midrash Eicha 134, reflect the delight experienced in Torah study, spiritual, true, genuine satisfaction of the longing of the opportunity to return to an open, intense bond with God, established through temple service, fulfillment beyond material success, comforts, and affluence. And as we say, because we don't have the temple standing at this time, we can go to the mini temples, the synagogues, or the house of study, and even the home could become a mini temple, and we could worship God in whatever way that we can by creating a world that is conducive to serving God together, collaboration. Wishing you a good night. Bye.